Behind the glamour of classic Hollywood, many famous actors and actresses had a secret they couldn't share. In a time when racism was widespread and studios controlled every detail of Astar's image, some of the biggest names in movies hid their biracial backgrounds to survive and succeed. Some passed as white to get roles. Others kept their family history private out of fear of losing their careers, facing rejection, or even putting themselves in danger. From leading men with black ancestry to beloved actresses with indigenous or mixed-race roots, these stars lived double lives. Some knew the truth but stayed silent. Others only discovered their heritage later in life. Now, we're uncovering their hidden histories, the struggles, the sacrifices, and the strength it took to thrive in a world that wasn't ready to accept them as they truly were. These are the 16 vintage Hollywood stars whose biracial identities were kept secret, and their stories are far more interesting than the perfect personas crafted for them. Freddy Washington. From its earliest days, Hollywood was largely shaped by white male filmmakers and producers, crafting stories that catered primarily to white audiences. This foundation created an industry where non-white characters were either excluded or portrayed through a narrow, often troubling lens. For African American actors, opportunities were especially limited, with roles typically confined to maids, butlers, slaves, or sharecroppers, characters that reinforced harmful stereotypes and offered little in the way of depth or dignity. Within this environment, Frederica Carolyn Freddy Washington emerged as a compelling and courageous figure in African American cinema. Born in 1903 in Savannah, Georgia, Freddy's light skin and European features often led others to mistakenly assume she was white, a misconception that would follow her throughout her life and career. She began performing during the dynamic Harlem Renaissance, sharing the stage with icons like Josephine Baker. As an actress, Freddy refused to pass as white for professional gain, choosing instead to challenge the industry's racial boundaries, a stance that made her both a pioneer and a symbol of resistance within an unequal system. Freddy's most iconic role came in the 1934 film Imitation of Life, where she portrayed Paola, a light-skinned black woman who chooses to pass for white. This role, while bringing her significant critical attention, also sparked accusations that she was denying her own heritage. Shikama, however, vehemently refuted these claims. She famously declared, "I'm honest and you don't have to be white to be good," a statement that encapsulated her unwavering pride in her identity. Freddy actively embraced her roots, becoming a vocal activist for African Americans in the performing arts. She co-founded the Negro Actors Guild of America in 1937 and served as the entertainment editor for The People's Voice, an influential African American newspaper. She was also deeply involved with the NAACP. The fact that Freddy was so light-skinned that she reportedly had to wear makeup to play black characters shows the absurdity of racial categorization in that era. Despite her ability to pass for white and frequent whites-only establishments without issue, she consciously refused to leverage this for economic or social gain. Her powerful decision to prioritize her identity and advocacy over potential career advancement was a direct challenge to the one-drop rule and Hollywood's racial norms. This choice, however, came at a cost. Her career was ultimately hampered by Hollywood's refusal to cast black women in romantic leads, and her own steadfast refusal to fully pass. Freddy Washington's unwavering pride in her black identity, even when it meant professional limitations, established her as a symbol of resistance against racial erasure in Hollywood. Carol Channing. Carol Channing, the effervescent Broadway icon celebrated for her unforgettable performances in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes and Hello, Dolly, carried a profound secret about her heritage for the majority of her life. It was a revelation that came to her at the tender age of 16, when her mother disclosed that her father, George Channing, was a light-skinned African-American man who had, for all intents and purposes, passed for white. Also, her paternal grandmother was African-American, and her paternal grandfather was German-American. This deeply personal information remained private for decades, only coming to light when Channing published her memoir, Just Lucky, I Guess, at the age of 81 in 2002. At the heart of early 20th century America's racial landscape, and by extension, Hollywood, was the one-drop rule. This informal yet widely accepted social and legal principle, also known as hypodescent, classified anyone with even a trace of black ancestry as black, regardless of appearance or other heritage. With origins tracing back to a 1662 Virginia law, the one-drop rule had far-reaching and often damaging consequences for people of mixed race, limiting their access to opportunities and subjecting them to the same systemic discrimination faced by African Americans more broadly. It was a construct that shaped lives and careers, particularly in industries like entertainment, where image and identity were under constant scrutiny. Despite the societal pressures that had compelled her father to conceal his black identity, Channing expressed immense pride in her greatest genes in showbiz, genuinely believing that their African American ancestry contributed to her exceptional talent for singing and dancing. This perspective directly challenged the prevailing negative stereotypes about black performers, transforming a hidden heritage into a source of personal strength and artistic pride. The fact that her father chose to pass for white, and that this secret was maintained for so long, underscores the immense societal pressure on individuals to conform to racial norms for both career and social acceptance during that era. Channing's story reveals how deeply mixed ancestries were woven into the fabric of Hollywood's stars, even when these truths were meticulously hidden. Lena Horn. Lena Horn was a pioneering singer and actress whose illustrious career was intricately shaped by the complex dynamics of her mixed racial heritage. Born in Brooklyn, Horn's family lineage was a rich blend of African American, European American, and Native American descent, firmly rooting her within the educated and affluent black bourgeoisie of the time. Despite her relatively light complexion, Hollywood studios, keenly attuned to the racial boundaries of a segregated industry, found themselves in a paradox when it came to Lena Horn. On one hand, they recognized her striking beauty and undeniable talent. On the other, they were hesitant to cast her in prominent roles that might challenge prevailing social norms. Particularly when it came to leading or romantic parts, the industry was reluctant to market her as a black actress, fearing backlash from white audiences. For actors of color during Hollywood's golden age, the road to success was lined with difficult choices and systemic barriers. The industry offered little middle ground. One could either accept roles steeped in stereotype, maids, servants, or other reductive caricatures, or attempt the painful and often isolating path of passing as white. The rigid, racially biased casting standards of the time meant that romantic leads and complex characters were almost exclusively reserved for white performers. As a result, many biracial or light-skinned black actors altered their names, histories, and appearances in hopes of advancing their careers. In some cases, studios attempted to reframe a performer's racial identity altogether. To navigate this tightrope, they often Latinized actresses like Lena Horn, darkening her skin with makeup and casting her in ethnically ambiguous roles. In her mainstream film debut, Panama Hattie, for example, Horn was presented as a Latina character, a strategy used to make her presence more palatable to white audiences while still keeping her racial identity. Fiercely resisted these attempts to force her to pass as Latina. She famously articulated her frustration, stating, "My entire life until then had been a succession of attempts to give me what nowadays I suppose would be called an image." This profound statement revealed her struggle with a world that sought to narrowly define her identity. The studio's efforts to Latinize her and even darken her skin were a direct commercial strategy, aimed at making her palatable to white audiences while avoiding the explicit black label. For romantic leads, Horn, quote, journey was one of constant self-definition. She navigated a world that wanted to categorize her rigidly, but she ultimately found strength and authenticity in her black identity later in her career. After she had gained more control over her image and was more secure in her identity as a black woman, her portrayals of Latina women seemed to bother her less, even confidently adopting such personas on her own terms in albums like Lena Like Latin. Horn's experience exemplifies the golden cage of Hollywood, where even immense talent and beauty were subjected to racial rebranding. Eartha Kitt. Eartha Kitt, the unforgettable singer, actress, and iconic Catwoman, emerged from a childhood marked by profound hardship and racial complexity. Born in 1927 on a cotton plantation in South Carolina, her mother was of mixed African and Cherokee ancestry, and her father was believed to be a white man. This biracial background, coupled with her light skin, led to her being rejected by various communities, including her own family, and facing discrimination from a very young age, sent to live with an aunt in Harlem, New York. Kitt discovered and nurtured her passion for showbiz. Despite the formidable racial barriers of her era, her distinctive voice, captivating personality, and wildly original stage presence propelled her to international stardom, making her a mixed African-American singer and actress of the vintage era. The fact that her biracial identity and light skin made her unaccepted by different communities directly contributed to her early abandonment and difficult childhood. This personal struggle likely fueled her powerful artistry and outspoken nature, as she had already experienced profound societal rejection. Kitt's journey from a rejected biracial child to a global icon is a powerful testament to her extraordinary resilience and her refusal to be confined by societal expectations. Later in her career, she faced blacklisting for her outspoken anti-war comments, indicating that while she had, through sheer force of personality and talent, transcended some of the initial racial limitations, she then encountered new forms of censorship for her nonconformity. Sammy Davis Jr. Born in 1925 in Harlem, New York, Sammy Davis Jr. was a legendary and multifaceted entertainer who faced the challenges of racial barriers in Hollywood and the burgeoning Las Vegas entertainment scene. His father, Sammy Davis Sr., was African American, and his mother, Elvira Sanchez, was Afro-Cuban. For a significant portion of his career, Davis Jr. made a strategic decision regarding his public identity. He claimed his mother was Puerto Rican, a choice driven by the prevalent anti-Cuban sentiments in the U.S. during the 1960s. This calculated misdirection was a direct response to his fear that openly acknowledging his Afro-Cuban heritage would harm his record sales and broader career prospects. This act of ethnic passing or strategic identity management allowed him to navigate a racially charged industry and appeal to a wider audience. The fear of backlash in record sales directly influenced his decision to misrepresent his mother's origin for commercial survival. Despite this strategic concealment, Davis Jr. was an ardent civil rights advocate. He actively fought against segregation in entertainment venues, famously refusing to work at establishments that practiced racial discrimination, a stance that ultimately contributed to the integration of Miami Beach nightclubs and Las Vegas casinos. He also publicly supported civil rights leaders, like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. This complex relationship with his identity and activism shows the nuanced ways individuals navigated a discriminatory society, choosing to conceal one aspect for professional survival while boldly challenging injustice in other areas. Dorothy Dandridge. Dorothy Dandridge was a captivating and immensely talented singer and actress who broke significant barriers in Hollywood. She became the first Black woman to be nominated for a Best Actress Academy Award for her powerful role in the 1954 film Carmen Jones. Dandridge quote, "S parents were both of mixed racial origin, a heritage that endowed her with copper-colored skin and Caucasian features. This biracial background placed her in a uniquely complex and often precarious position within the segregated landscape of Hollywood. She was frequently typecast as a mulatto figure, actor archetype that, as scholar Donald Bogle notes, was simultaneously privileged and abject, caught tragically between racial worlds. While her beauty and talent allowed her to achieve a level of fame unprecedented for a Black woman, her career was ultimately constrained by Hollywood's deep-seated reluctance to offer complex, non-stereotypical roles, particularly romantic leads, to Black women. Her role in Carmen Jones was groundbreaking precisely because it portrayed an attractive, flirtatious, headstrong, independent woman who was neither a maid nor subservient. Despite her groundbreaking achievements, Dandridge herself articulated the profound struggle of being suddenly projected into a Caucasian orbit. She once said, "Whites weren't quite ready for full acceptance even of me. Purportedly beautiful, passable, acceptable, talented." This statement encapsulates the subtle yet powerful racial gatekeeping she faced. The fact that she was biracial and had light skin, making her passable, did not guarantee full acceptance. It merely placed her in a liminal space. Rita Hworth. Born Margarita Carmen Cancino in Brooklyn, New York, Rita Hworth was destined for global stardom, but not as her authentic self. Her lineage was a vibrant blend of Spanish and Irish-American heritage. Her father was a Spanish flamenco dancer from Seville, and her mother an Irish-American Ziegfeld showgirl. Initially performing as Rita Cancino, she was frequently typecast in ethnic roles. Studios even went so far as to darken her hair and skin with makeup to exaggerate her Latinness, a common practice to fit her into a marketable but stereotypical niche. To break free from these confines and achieve broader mainstream success, Margarita underwent a dramatic and often painful transformation orchestrated by Hollywood. Her naturally jet black hair was dyed a striking flaming red, her hairline was altered, and she adopted her mother's maiden name, Hworth. This meticulous rebranding successfully positioned her as a classically American beauty and earned her the coveted title of the Love Goddess of the 1940s. This strategic shift from emphasizing to erasing her Latin heritage was a direct response to Hollywood's commercial demands. The studio's initial exaggeration of her Latinness, followed by her drastic transformation to appear classically American, demonstrates Hollywood's cynical manipulation of identity for commercial gain, a process often described as rebranding by force. The personal cost of this manufactured identity was significant. Hworth, despite her luminous on-screen presence, grappled with her identity, often feeling forced to reshape herself to fit industry standards. Her story shows the immense personal toll of such manufactured identities, revealing the dehumanizing aspect of a studio system that prioritized a marketable image over an individual's authentic heritage. Even today, many are unaware of the Spanish roots of this silver screen legend. This practice contributed to a narrow definition of beauty and identity in mainstream cinema for decades. Anthony Quinn. Anthony Quinn, born in 1915 as Manuel Antonio Rodolfo Quinn, Oaxaca in Chihuahua, Mexico, was a monumental figure in Hollywood, renowned for his powerful performances and incredible versatility. His heritage was a rich mix of Mexican, Indian, and Irish roots, with his parents having been deeply involved in the Mexican Revolution. Quinn, distinctive earthy and chameleon-like looks allowed him to transcend the typical typecasting that plagued many actors of color. He portrayed an astonishing array of characters from diverse ethnic backgrounds: Greek, Chinese, Hawaiian, and indigenous, a remarkable feat for his time. Despite his immense talent and profound pride in his Mexican heritage, Quinn, like many other actors navigating the treacherous waters of early Hollywood, briefly changed his name early in his career to gain broader acceptance. This initial name change, while seemingly minor, was a strategic adaptation to an industry that often demanded the shedding of overtly foreign identities to achieve leading man status. His ability to embody such a wide range of non-white roles, rather than being confined by his specific heritage, showcases a different facet of Hollywood's racial dynamics. A demand for ageneric exotic, rather than authentic, specific representation. Quinn's career was marked by significant achievements, including winning 2 Academy Awards, notably his first for his role as Eufemio Zapata in Viva Zapata. His performances were consistently infused with a raw passion that many believed could only stem from his Latino background. His story is a powerful counter-narrative to outright erasure. He leveraged his unique appearance to become a major star. However, his initial name change and the fact that he rarely played Mexican characters, a common experience for Latin lover types like Ramon Novarro, reveal the subtle ways Hollywood still controlled and diluted ethnic specificity, even when celebrating a superficial kind of diversity. Raquel Welch. Raquel Welch, the iconic bombshell of the 1960s and 1970s, was born Jo Raquel Tejada in Chicago. Her heritage was biracial. Her father, Armando Carlos Tejada Urquizo, was an aeronautical engineer from La Paz, Bolivia, and her mother was of English descent. For 4 decades of her illustrious career, Welch did not publicly acknowledge her Bolivian-American roots, allowing herself to be marketed and perceived as a quintessential all-American sex symbol. This decision was influenced by the desire to avoid typecasting as a Latina, leading her to use her ex-husband's surname, Welch. The choice to use her ex-husband's surname and suppress her heritage was a direct response to Hollywood's discriminatory practices, which often limited roles for Latinas to narrow stereotypes. Her public image was carefully curated to fit the prevailing white aesthetic of the time. It was not until later in her career, when she took on the role of Aunt Dora in the PBS television series American Family, a show centered on a Mexican-American family, that she began to openly embrace and speak about her Latina identity. Welch expressed profound regret over whitewashing her culture to achieve fame, a sentiment she powerfully articulated during a speech at the National Press Club. "Latinos are here to stay. As citizen Raquel, I'm proud to be Latina." Her journey reflects the gradual yet significant shifting tides of identity, acceptance in Hollywood and broader society. Her initial concealment shows the immense pressure on actors to conform to a white ideal, while her later reclamation of her heritage signifies progress and the enduring importance of authentic representation. Dolores del Rio. María de los Dolores Asunsolo y López Negrete, 1904-1983, universally known as Dolores del Rio, was a Mexican actress who transcended borders to become a global star. Hailing from a prominent aristocratic family in Victoria de Durango, Mexico, her lineage traced back to Spanish viceregal nobility. She emerged as the first major female Latin American crossover star in Hollywood's silent era, a trailblazer who captivated audiences with her beauty and grace. Del Rio's image in Hollywood was meticulously crafted and managed by her American filmmaker discoverer, Edwin Carew. He strategically shortened her name to Dolores del Rio and launched an extensive advertising campaign that presented her as the heiress and first lady of the high Mexican society. This carefully curated persona was designed to appeal to American audiences, emphasizing her aristocratic background rather than the complexities of her Mexican identity, which could have been subject to prejudice. While her heritage was not hidden, in the sense of being entirely concealed, its presentation was controlled and often exoticized by Hollywood, rather than fully embraced for its nuanced reality. The emphasis on aristocracy and First Lady was a marketing strategy to make her palatable and glamorous to American audiences, rather than directly confronting potential biases against her ethnicity. This represents a subtle form of identity management, where certain aspects are highlighted and others downplayed or simplified. Del Rio navigated a remarkable dual career, achieving immense success in Hollywood before returning to Mexico, where she became equally important as a key figure in Mexico's golden age of cinema. Ramon Novarro. Ramon Novarro, born in 1899 as Jose Ramon Gil Samaniego in Durango, Mexico, rose to become one of Hollywood's most celebrated Latin lovers during the silent film era. His family was wealthy and influential, and his mother, Leonor Gavilan, claimed direct descent from an Aztec prince, making him genuinely biracial with indigenous roots. Novarro emigrated to the United States during the tumultuous Mexican Civil War, seeking greater opportunities in the burgeoning film industry. His striking good looks, sensuality, and undeniable talent quickly caught Hollywood's discerning eye early in his career. He changed his surname to Navarro, believing his original name to be a hindrance to his professional advancement. This decision, while seemingly minor, reflects the prevailing industry pressure to shed overtly foreign identities for broader appeal. Despite his immense fame and his indigenous heritage, Navarro was ironically never allowed to play a Mexican character, instead consistently being typecast as a foreigner from a generic, exotic country. This highlights the limitations of the Latin lover stereotype, which allowed for a certain degree of exoticism, but simultaneously erased specific ethnic identities. The refusal to cast him as Mexican reveals Hollywood's preference for vague foreignness over specific, authentic ethnic representation. Navarro, quote, "See, personal life was also marked by profound struggles. including the internal conflict between his deep Catholic faith and his homosexuality, which he meticulously kept hidden from the public. His career experienced a significant decline after he reportedly refused Louis B. Meyer. Quotes demand that he marry to conceal his sexuality, a testament to the industry's pervasive control over its stars' private lives. Navarro's story is a poignant example of how multiple marginalized identities, biracial and gay, compounded the pressures to conceal and conform in Hollywood. Dorothy Lamore. Dorothy Lamore, forever immortalized as the Sarong Queen and a beloved pinup girl during World War II, carried a complex, often unacknowledged Creole heritage. Her lineage was a rich blend of Louisiana French, Irish, and Spanish descent, with persistent questions surrounding potential African Islander ancestry. While such mixed heritage was commonplace and accepted in her native New Orleans, Hollywood initially found her unusual looking and struggled to place her. The film industry, however, quickly capitalized on her dark, exotic looks by typecasting her almost exclusively in roles as natives and exotic women, most famously in her signature sarongs. Lamore herself never openly discussed her ancestry, a silence that aligned with Hollywood's pervasive practice of whitewashing racially ambiguous women to enhance their marketability and appeal to a broader, predominantly white audience. This selective embrace of exoticism allowed the industry to leverage her ambiguous racial features for typecasting, while simultaneously ignoring or suppressing the full, complex reality of her mixed-race background. Lamore, quote, SC career vividly demonstrates how Hollywood exploited perceived exoticism without genuinely acknowledging or representing the nuanced identities of its stars. The initial perception of her as unusual looking and her subsequent typecasting as exotic reveal a system that profited from racial ambiguity without granting genuine acceptance or allowing for full identity expression. Merl Oberon. Merl Oberon was a British actress who achieved international stardom, yet her entire public persona was built upon an elaborate and meticulously maintained fabrication of her origins. Born Estelle Merl O'Brien Thompson in Bombay, British India, her true heritage was biracial. Her mother was of Indian and Burgher, Sri Lankan Maori, descent, and her father was British. For the vast majority of her life, Oberon concealed this truth, instead claiming she was born in Tasmania, Australia, to white parents, with the convenient explanation that her birth records had been destroyed in a fire. This profound deception was a direct and desperate response to the deeply racist colonial society she grew up in, where she was constantly teased by the majority European students for her mixed ethnicity. It was further driven by the discriminatory Hollywood system, which would have severely limited her career prospects had her true background been known. To maintain her secret, Oberon went to extraordinary lengths, even passing her own mother off as a servant when she moved to England. Her darker skin tone, a consequence of her Sri Lankan background, presented a particular challenge with early color film tests, further emphasizing the lengths she went to maintain her fabricated white identity. The suits at London Films, recognizing her light complexion, willfully erased the fact that her mother was South Asian. Oberon's extreme measures to conceal her biracial identity highlight the profound fear of racial discrimination and the immense pressure to conform to a white ideal for career survival in early Hollywood. Her elaborate lies and the act of disguising her own mother were direct consequences of the prevailing racist societal norms and the segregated Hollywood environment that would have denied her leading roles. Her lifelong deception suggests a deep psychological toll as she lived in constant fear of exposure. Susan Kohner. Susan Kohner, born in 1936, is an American actress most recognized for her compelling and critically acclaimed portrayal of Sarah Jane in the 1959 film Imitation of Life. Born to Lupita Tovar, a prominent Mexican actress, and Paul Kohner, a Czech Jewish film producer, Kohner herself is biracial. Her role as a light-skinned black woman who chooses to pass for white resonated deeply with audiences, earning her an Academy Award nomination and a Golden Globe Award. While Kohner herself is not black, her mixed heritage and powerful performance brought the complex and often painful reality of racial passing to mainstream audiences, making her a significant figure in the cinematic exploration of identity. Her casting in this pivotal role is particularly noteworthy because, as the historical record indicates, many African American actresses were tested for the part. Yet it ultimately went to Conner, who was of Mexican and Czech Jewish descent. This decision highlights a subtle yet pervasive aspect of Hollywood's racial dynamics, a preference for racially ambiguous non-black actors to portray black characters passing for white. This choice reveals a form of racial gatekeeping, even within narratives explicitly about race, as it allowed the industry to explore the theme of race without directly challenging the existing racial hierarchy of casting. Conner, Esso's performance, while widely acclaimed, inadvertently reinforced the idea that passing was a phenomenon best explored through a lens removed from actual black identity. John Gavin. John Gavin, a leading man known for his roles in iconic films like Psycho and Spartacus, meticulously cultivated an image as the quintessential all-American actor. This public persona, however, belied his true heritage. Born John Gollinor, Gavin was of Mexican and Irish descent. To seamlessly fit into Hollywood's dominant white aesthetic, and to avoid being typecast in ethnic roles, he strategically changed his surname to Gavin. This strategic decision was made to achieve broader appeal and secure more diverse roles in an era that rigidly favored a singular white American ideal for its leading men. Gavin's case exemplifies how male actors of mixed European and non-European heritage also face significant pressure to conform to a white American ideal. His successful career as a leading man suggests that his passing was effective, allowing him to embody a mainstream ideal. Exploring the hidden identities of these vintage Hollywood stars unveils a deeply layered and often overlooked chapter in Hollywood's past. Did any of these revelations surprise you? How do you think their careers might have been different if their biracial identities were public knowledge back then? Let us know in the comments. Subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss our deep dives into the past. And don't forget to like and share. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.